Welcome to the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jono White. I'm the founder and principal consultant of Clarity. We are an Australian-based consultancy that works with leaders around the world, and our passion is to invest in people to become everything they're meant to be in order to fill the world with healthy organizations that people love to work for and customers line up to buy from. The goal of this podcast is to invest in you and your leadership. If you're just joining us for the first time, then feel free to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, the most popular being our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from around the world in all different sectors give their in-depth answers on leadership, what books they love, what they found most challenging, the most meaningful stories, how they structure their time through the day. That's free, so go and check it out. And we'd love to interview you about your leadership. I believe you have advice from your experience, your context, and your life so far that is important and can help other leaders. It's also a great way to give back. It's free to get involved, and you can do so by going to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or just Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form that pops up. We have a free resource for you on our website. It's called Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook. It has interviews with 10 world-class leaders, and you can go to consultclarity.org. It's right at the top, and get that today. We also have a daily email that we send out to over 15,000 leaders, and that email contains the highlights, our best content from our podcasts, our blog, my book, the books that we're loving that are out there about leadership. It's also the best way to get access to our masterclasses and workshops before anyone else. And there's also exclusive and limited special options just for subscribers. And you can subscribe by going to consultclarity.org/subscribe. Now, my gift to you is to work incredibly hard to provide the best leadership content I can to invest in you and your leadership. So if you're finding our content helpful, if you find this podcast helpful, then your gift to me could be this. If you do find it helpful, then write a review or rate our content and make sure you subscribe or follow. I can't emphasize enough how helpful that is. It really does help us to get the word out there so we can invest in more leaders to become everything they're meant to be. It also means a lot to me personally when people like you and people in our community share our content on social media. So if you do that, then please do look for me, Jono White, to tag me, and look to tag Clarity on whatever platform you're on. And our team, including me, I'm always looking to see when people have mentioned us so that I can engage with you. And also we look at sharing content. So if you write something about something we've done, there's also a good chance we'll share that with our followers. So if you could do that, that is a massive, massive help as we try to invest in as many leaders as we can around the world. Last of all, you can check out my book about how to deal with difficult people even if you hate conflict. It's called Step Up or Step Out. It's available on Amazon. You can just look up Step Up or Step Out Jono White, or you can go to store.consultclarity.org/book and check it out there. I have coached leader after leader after leader, and in more than 50% of the sessions, this topic comes up. How do I deal with this person? I'm finding it really difficult, and I just want to find a way that doesn't blow up to just to have a difficult conversation, to lead them better. How do I do that? There's a 3-step process that I outline in this book that I believe can help you. Okay, let's get into today's episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to episode 16 of the Leadership Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jono White, founder and principal consultant of Clarity. And today's guest is Mike Marr. Mike is the founder and owner of TPT Group in New Zealand. As a New Zealand entrepreneur, he holds a number of governance roles across TPT Group, and over 21 years, Mike has led 10 successful startup companies and completed 12 acquisitions. TPT Group comprises companies in the electronic security, information technology, data communications, future innovation, including robotics and artificial intelligence, finance and commercial property sectors. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's great to chat with you today.
Hey, thanks, Jono. Great to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
And let's start off by getting a bit of context for listeners who, before we hear your story, just to understand a bit more about TPT Group and a bit more about what you do. And as I'm just looking at the bio that I just read out around the 12 acquisitions and 10 startup, I think it's going to be a great conversation about. I can't wait to find out, more about your story and the things you've learned. But what does the context look like today in terms of your role today and a group of companies, and what that sort of looks like as an overview for people listening?
Yeah, look, again, it's been a crazy entrepreneurial journey. So though I'm the owner of the group, I'm also still in the CEO seat. But TPT is really our ultimate parent company. And so that has independent directors that sit on it from a governance perspective. And but basically, it's really an investment vehicle. So again, family-owned investment vehicle that invests in different businesses. We start businesses, we acquire businesses, and we're about growing businesses. And I guess our tagline is growing great businesses.
Yeah.
And hey, so we're not in it for the money. We're really passionate about business and how we build great companies.
Yeah, I love that, and I think already from the little conversation we had before, I think there's a real deep passion around organizational culture when you're starting, and then when you're acquiring, and I think they would be different. There'd be a lot of overlap, but I imagine there'd be some different challenges in there. So that's probably a good segue to go into the story. So tell us the Mike Marr story in terms of how you became the leader you are today and ended up doing what you are today. And feel free to go back as far as you want. Tell us a bit more about your story.
Hey, look, I mean, I started off as an electrical apprentice in a power company, so I've, I guess, a lot of growth mindset and a journey of constantly learning, and probably, I'm probably, I guess, growing up from a trade and tools up is I've learned is everything is really about people. And I guess, from that early career, that natural disconnect that happens between leadership and the people on the ground. And so growing up in leadership is, how do you break that down, and how do you be real, and how do you create a great business and a great culture? And I think, everything is a fruit of culture. Every single thing in a business, whether that's customer service, is it quality, health and safety, profitability, everything is a fruit of culture. And so I sort of, one of my first leadership roles was in a multinational business as a divisional manager, where every staff member was older than me,
Yeah.
And the challenge of that, and saying, who's this young upstart coming and sort of telling me what to do? But I think it actually shaped my leadership quite a lot, because one, I didn't know anything, and even now I look back after 27 years in management, I think how little I know now, but I must have known nothing back then. But what I did find is I couldn't tell them what to do. I had to work alongside them. I had to roll my sleeves up. I had to be one of the team.
Yeah.
And I had to engage, and so I think that was quite shaping in my leadership style,
I think the thing I love about that is, in my experience as well, I think if people want a really great sort of deep end experience of leadership, there's a couple of things: is have people older than you on your team, and maybe more experienced than you that you're leading. And then the other thing is, I think you get a similar thing when you're leading volunteers. So if people can lead in not-for-profits, in a sort of charity or not-for-profit, because then you lose. I think the thing that's powerful about both of those things, like you experienced with having people in your team who are older than you, is you lose a little bit of the positional authority because people are older than you. So you don't have this automatic, or you definitely can't assume you do anyway. And so it forces you to, from square one, I think you have to lead better, because you can't rely on that, oh, well, I'm the boss, which is actually just a really terrible way to lead.
Yes.
But I certainly found both of those things can be
can be helpful. So it sounds like that was pretty instrumental. And when did you, I guess for you, you were in this divisional role managing. When did you start your first company or step into your first role where you were CEO, where Mike was actually, in that sort of leadership role where there's no one telling you what to do? You're now in the seat, really having to make the calls on direction and strategy.
Well, probably really it was a couple more of those sort of big corporate roles I had after that, which sort of shaped me to the point where I actually, do I want to work for a big corporate anymore? Because I always had this dream of really owning my own business,
Yes.
And I never thought I could do it. I'd go home to my wife and complain about my day, and she would say, well, you can do it. You can go and work for yourself. And I said, oh, yeah, right. But then one day I did. I just sort of decided these guys can do it. I can do it. And I bought a really old Mazda station wagon, and I actually fell back on my trade, and I strapped a tool belt back on.
Wow. Yeah.
And started the group we are today. And I had friends come and visit me and say, you're mad. You're throwing your career away. And, but it was never about the money. I was just over it, and so the rest is history, and then, and then we just grew and grew. So, yeah, but it's always been driven by a passion for business, and it's about mastering the game, and so and I guess our first business was an electrical business, and so it grew over the space of 2 or 3 years, and then we did our first acquisition of part of the Siemens business. We built the advanced security business, and I used to always get bored working for a corporate. Like after 2 years, I'd be climbing the walls, But journey of 22 years. So last month we celebrated 22 years in business, but it's never a dull moment. It's always, let's go and buy another one. Let's go start something. Let's go and buy another building, and so it's quite dynamic and constantly changing. So.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I really resonate with that in terms of some people look at me starting Clarity, and I think people go, "Wow, it must be really hard to do that." And it's sort of like, well, yes, it is hard work starting anything, but there's also something in me that almost feels like it was inevitable, like it was just like something I had to do, and it's just like I feel so. I love it so much that you sort of take all of the challenges, and I certainly feel for me, I get so excited about entrepreneurship. I really resonate with that. The idea of it's always different. Every day is different. And I think there's maybe some people have never experienced that, or maybe some people who start their own businesses but don't have that wiring for that. This is just exhausting. But for me, I always look at that and I go, I just don't get that. For me, it's so dynamic. Dynamic's a great word. Tell us about your first acquisition and I guess what that looked like as a leader coming in and doing something you've never done before. You've obviously grown, and you've been growing a business that you started from that point. But I imagine acquisition. Well, you can actually tell me, because how different is acquisition to starting? Lead the two and grow the two.
Look, you're very different challenges. Both. You have to build a culture, and you have to provide leadership to, right? But the first acquisition was part of the Siemens business, and taking, I guess, a piece of a multinational and bringing into private ownership, and the challenges around that, and again trying to get back to that. Hey, we certainly didn't have the deep pockets of what a multinational would had around business, and how you had to sort of retrain the thinking of the people, and actually build a strong culture. So day one around that, we did a lot of work around, work style profiles and team building stuff to actually rebuild the foundations of that business under our ownership. The whole thing of acquisitions today, because we've just done our 12th in the last sort of week and a half.
Oh, wow.
We've got number 13 and 14 on the way, is that it starts first with people. It starts first around culture.
Yeah.
And so the first day when we buy a business, we send all the staff with their families out for dinner on us. because that's who we are. We celebrate our people and our culture, and that's the start of how we build the business. It's always based around the who first. And we have an analogy we use in our management meetings and in the business, and that's around a jigsaw puzzle, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever done a jigsaw as a child, you get to the end, and most people doing a jigsaw, even if it's a was jig one over Christmas, gee, someone says, you sure there's enough pieces here? You sure we're not missing some, And because you need every piece of the jigsaw to complete the picture, right?
Yeah.
But an organization's the same. Every piece of the jigsaw is a person in the company, and it takes every person doing what they do to build a great business. And no one piece is more important than the other. The CEO is not more important than an apprentice or an administrator. Everyone's got a role to play. They're just different roles, And in a great culture, every piece should be recognised.
Yeah, I agree. Recognised and valued, and if people feel that, then that's a mighty. You're a long way towards a lot of wins. I feel like if your people can say, "I feel valued here," I feel like that's almost you're sort of halfway there. Everything else becomes so much easier, I think. So from a purely in terms of like the perspective on how it impacts the business, it actually makes a lot of sense. But I also think there's something in you saying where it's the right thing to do, right? Like people, it is what it is about. And definitely for you, like you said, it's not about money. It's about growing great businesses, and that starts with the who. I'd love to ask you for someone listening who is going, oh man, I really, my department that I'm leading, my small business that I own, or even someone who's in a senior leadership role of a larger business, and they're really going, we need to do culture, which I hear a lot of people like, I need to do something about culture. Where would you start? What are the biggest levers in your experience for really shifting culture?
Look, I think it's very much around, organizations talk culture, but they're not accountable around culture. And what's more is they won't put their money where their mouth is around culture. So, and culture, I think, is something you invest in every single day, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just the way you respond to a situation, or it could be like we do. It's compulsory for every team and business to go out for lunch or breakfast on the company every month, and they're not allowed to talk about work. It's about connecting as a team. And we have staff awards where you're not allowed to nominate yourself; you nominate your peers. And we send families out for dinner. So an employee's done a great job, takes their family out, and what that's about is a child saying, "Hey, so Mum, why is work paying for our dinner tonight?" And Mum's saying, "Well, son, that's because they say I've done a really good job."
Yeah.
And you know what? Just maybe one day when it's Mum's funeral, maybe that son gets up and says, I remember for all the years Mum worked at TPT Group, the amount of times we went out for dinner on the company because they just said Mum was so awesome at what she did. That's legacy, And there's so much thing around culture, But in a great culture, we recognise the great, but equally too, we we have those honest conversations, and because we're about building great teams and great companies, and then we've got to be able to have those other honest discussions with people in a constructive way to shape them to be in our culture too,
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I think that's what you do when you really value someone. When you really, if you look at your most significant relationships, which is where you value people the most, with your partner, with your kids, with your closest friends, it's that I think in the healthiest way, it's that combination, isn't it, of investing time. And I love how you're doing that, and I think you're really creative with that. My brain's sort of ticking over hearing you unpack how you do some of those things. They're so practical, but it's actually investing your money where you're what you're talking about, but it's putting an investment in time and saying you people are actually valuable enough to be able to go out on the company and spend some time together, because and not talk about work, because we know that that's that's really important. But then if you think about your most significant relationships, you have honest conversations, and the best friendships are those friendships where you can, you've got a close enough mate where you can call each other out on something and still be friends, say exactly what you think. And I think it should be the same in companies, but it comes from a place of valuing the person.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when, look, it's the wrong piece in the jigsaw puzzle, so occasionally we get the wrong person as part of the team. We still love the person, right? Because everyone, our whole team sees how we treat that person. So we still love them, but they're not be part of the right jigsaw.
Yeah, that's right. And it doesn't mean that those things are necessarily any easier when you have those conversations. I think they're always hard. But if you're willing to have the conversations and you recognize, you have the honest conversations, and you really, really double down on recognizing people and encouraging them for who they are, I think it sounds like you guys do that really, really well. And it's obviously very important to you. As you look back over, 22 years, what are some of the moments since you started, TPT Group? What are some of the moments that come to mind that you think back to and you think that really shaped some of the things you do today? It might have been a big win you had with a particular employee where you really felt like you had to put your, really put your money where your mouth was and really work through stuff, but that ended up being a big win, and they actually, really helped them turn around their performance and find, or it might be something completely different. I don't know what comes to mind.
Look, there's been many things. There's a lot of things we do by stealth with our team and things like that. I remember years ago we had an employee who came to see me, and he was sort of, I would say, he didn't report to me. He was another part of the organisation, and he came to see me and said, "Look, Mike, I've got cancer, and I want to ask if you'll keep my job so I go and fight this and give me 6 months off, and could you pay out all my annual leave, and so I can go and deal with this." And look, I sort of said, look, hey, really sorry about that. Absolutely, you can keep your job, but no, we're not going to pay your leave out. We'll just put you on full pay, And it's these moments like that where you realise you can really impact someone's life for good in the way you actually respond in these different situations. And this guy, stood up and he wept in my arms, and because it was quite profound that he didn't have to worry about his financial situation, he could go and he was actually on full pay for 12 months. And that's something we've always sort of done in those more serious illness situations. But, we teach a lot of our employees and internal leadership training around, you impact how someone goes home at night, and that is an amazing privilege you have as a leader on how you respond to situations. Yes, you might want to respond this way, but if you can actually respond this other way, you can have a far, far bigger impact and actually, drive better outcomes and actually, change a life, or again, how someone goes home at night, how they go home and actually treat their kids, how they treat their spouse, And this is really a real thing. And this is the great thing about leadership, that you can have a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's an incredible story. That's just so touching. Thank you for sharing that. Any other stories come to mind off the top of your head around how you've done culture? I just think that people listening are going to be scribbling notes. I would not be surprised if there's going to be some, hey, you guys are on the company, need to go out and, once a month as a team, just have a meal together. I mean, where'd this come from? Oh, a guy named Mike Marr. I think people will be scribbling notes on this, Mike. Honestly, this is just brilliant. So yeah, please share another one. Share as many as you want.
Look, we don't get out any textbook. It's just what we sort of feel to do in our culture in real terms, and we focus a lot on that Maslow hierarchy of needs. And so we also do like staff newsletters, and we do those the old-fashioned way. So they probably cost about $3K a quarter to sort of or $4K a quarter to sort of prepare and print, but we actually. And they're about 20 pages long, and we post those out to the staff homes. Yes. We won't email them because they'll never get read.
Yeah.
We don't hand them out at work because they'll end up underneath the seat of the car and never get home. But they celebrate who we are. They celebrate our people. It gives customer feedback, who's actually getting trained and what their training is, and and our new work coming in, and recognizing and informing our people on what we're actually doing as a business and where we're going. But that's about that sitting on the coffee table. So when the son or daughter turns up, or the parents or the sister, or they actually sit and read about us too, and what our team actually do every day. And
Yes.
so it's about engaging our people again. And that even turns up to my house the same way in the post, and I'll sit there and read, even though I've seen it before in my case, but I'll sit and read it too on a weekend over a cup of tea or something like that,
Yeah.
But it's how we engage a team.
Yeah, that's so creative. Where I guess this is a bit of a broad question, but I can't help but ask it. It's such a deeply formed passion, and to be honest, you do this very differently, and you're probably aware of that. But I work with lots of leaders, and hearing the way you operate, it is very different and good different. I think it's but I'm interested to know where did this come from? Like, have you always thought like this? If you think back over your time in business, or like, where does this deep passion for people and just some of the way you treat people, where does that come from, and how Mike thinks about business and thinks about the world?
Look, I guess I'm a believer that businesses have to be profitable and they have to be successful, but you've got to invest back in people, and you've got to recognise your team that you actually have. And so it really comes down to probably my value set. You can call me a softie, but it's again is, look, I'm just someone who's, look, if there's one thing that keeps me awake at night, and it's probably the only thing, is if I feel I've let people down. So I'm about the best I can always to do right by people. Yes, I guess it's just probably right at my core. And I guess being privately owned, when I worked for corporates, I used to sometimes pay the staff to go out, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I'd pay for that personally in a corporate, so to send that staff member out. And in one of the cases, the company found out about it, and then they adopted and started doing that. And I think that's really neat. But it's I don't know, it's just something how you really recognise people and how you can actually make a difference. And
yeah, it's obviously very deeply embedded. Once again, I guess I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of listeners who are listening and probably are listening and just going, wow, I have to do this. Say you've got someone who is in a role for a large corporate or running their own business. What might be a first step for starting to lead in a way that really values people? I know, but if you were going to do one thing, or if you were sitting over a cup of tea with a listener, and they said, Mike, what should I do? I've got limited time. Maybe they've got limited budget, but they want to do something. What would be maybe one thing someone could do to invest and value their people?
I think it's that story. I think a lot of people are quite good at this, but even when you first go into the office in the morning, what do you actually do? Do you actually talk to some of your people, or do you actually head to your office? And we all have those days where we do head to our office, but chewing the fat with people, or car park conversations, and actually saying, so how are you doing, Johnny? Well, how are you really doing, Johnny? And actually just living life with people is actually important, and taking that time. And I think it's been real, just being real. And we teach a lot around leadership too, is great leaders. We focus a lot on the Jim Collins and level 5 leadership stuff, and and how we develop level 5 leaders, and level 5 leaders about personal humility. And when we fail as a business, it's the leader who takes ownership. When we succeed as a business, it's the team that succeeded. And great leaders ask questions. They're not afraid to say, I don't have the answers. And that's one thing COVID's taught us, right? We don't have all the answers. it's surfing a wave where we don't know where it's heading, and that's sort of what it's felt like. But it's fine to say, is be real with your team and say, actually, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what we're going to do. What do you guys actually think around this? But asking those questions upwards, sideways, and downwards is drives different conversations. And that old leadership style of just, people thinking, I guess we often see young leaders they don't want to admit that maybe they don't have the answer. But such a strength, it's how we build great teams, it's how we build great businesses. And to say I got that wrong, or things like that, is that's great leadership.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's counterintuitive, because you want to, particularly for young leaders, they might want to be strong and seem strong and build. They want to build their leadership, and they want to build their credibility. And so, from that place, but really from a deeper place of insecurity, you don't admit you're wrong, or you try to, oh yeah, when you actually don't know. And it's the counterintuitive fact that you actually need to flip that and be real. Say I don't know. Say, hey guys, I dropped the ball there. Say I'm sorry. So that's probably an area of weakness for me, where so I'd love some input from you guys, because I know this isn't something that I'm particularly strong at. That's where you actually build credibility, because that vulnerability helps people build trust, which that's for those listening who don't know about Jim Collins' level 5 leadership. Can you unpack a little bit of what that is for those listening?
Well, it's really given these sort of like level 1 through to level 5, where you can actually be a competent manager, like at sort of level 3, but often that doesn't mean you necessarily are around have developed that personal humility, or maybe all the corners haven't been rounded off yet, because you haven't been in leadership that long. But the longer you're in leadership, you realise you don't know everything, and and you've been knocked off a few times off your perch, and you've come back, and you've come back, and you've come back. You end up being a lot more grounded, and level 5 leaders have that enduring will for the organisation, for the purpose of what the organisation's around, but it's never actually about themselves.
Yes.
I mean, they're trying to look for their success at the whole time to do what's right for the business. It's not about themselves.
Yes.
And it's about but all about that personal humility, and actually really even pushing tension away from themselves.
Yeah, I love that. I love how Jim Collins talks about that, because in that is it in Good to Great with level 5 leadership? Yeah,
Good to Great.
And he talks about this this humility, but it's combined with this deep, like, stable, immovable value, like that's so committed to the values of who the organization is, and that it's sort of this really interesting combination of humility, which in some ways can come across as weak. Not that it is, but if you first look at humility, you might see it as weak. But he sort of makes the point about how it combines with this when it comes to the values and about making hard calls. These leaders that he looked at in Good to Great were so steadfast in the direction and in what mattered about who the company was, that there was such firmness that went with this humility, and it makes and that's really that combination around level 5 leadership. I love that.
That's good stuff, and I think that's really a powerful thing for leaders. But I think the other thing great about the whole level 5 leadership thing is that leadership is a journey, and it's recognizing that it is actually a journey, and it's something we never master either, and it's one we teach in our leadership training courses. Don't judge your boss even by everything he does. He's on a journey himself, like you're on a journey. And we even teach our people in training courses about go and tell your boss that he does it when he does a great job, because leadership's really lonely, and people need to be encouraged in that, because you can have a really tough day, you think, gee, do I want to stay in the chair? But so everyone needs encouragement too in the roles they're in. So.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of books, because we talked about Good to Great, are there any books in particular that you've, if you think back, that you tend to gift often? And this is a question that Tim Ferriss is. He has a podcast, and he wrote the 4-Hour Workweek. He often asks guests this question, and so I'm just stealing this question from him because I love it so much. Are there any books that you think, Mike, that you constantly gift to people more often than others?
I've a couple of Peter Irvine ones I have out of Australia, Gloria Jean stories and stuff like that. Around.
Yes.
pragmatic business approach and things like that. But and obviously the Jim Collins stuff we've talked on. So.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And I guess for you, as we sort of land today's conversation, which I think, like I said, I just won't be surprised to hear from listeners who implement some of the things you said. But did you have any final thoughts for people listening today on the chat we've had around culture and a bit about your journey?
Look, I really think there's what really drives us and what our purpose is, and we can get so hooked up around EBITDA and earnings and all these different types of things, but it is about people, and one of the most rewarding things I often look at our business and see how people have actually developed, and we have a saying in our business, up versus in. The more we can bring people up in our business, the better, instead of bringing people in. We know our culture and who we are. But I think, that thing on how we develop people, and again, just realise the opportunity you have as a leader today, that you impact how people go home at night, how they treat their kids, their family. The way you lead can drive a completely different outcome with a customer, with your team, and everything like that. And I think that's the amazing thing.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mike. I think that's a great place to land. That how you lead. Remember when you're getting out of your car or getting off the train, to walk into the office, or for many people right now, maybe to turn on Zoom, turn on Teams to go into the first meeting of the day. Just remember how your the fact that you have the potential to impact how people go home at night. That's really, really significant. So I just want to thank all of our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate that, and we really value your time. And once more, a really big thank you to Mike Marr. Mike, it's been fantastic to have you on the podcast. Like I said, I just know there's so much richness in what you've shared that I believe I'm going to hear some stories of people going and doing some of the things you've talked about. So thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, look, not at all. A real pleasure, and thanks for the opportunity. And hope there's some little nuggets in there that some people can apply. It's great, Jono.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Leadership Conversations podcast as much as I did. If you're joining us for the first time, don't forget to check out consultclarity.org. That's our website, consultclarity.org. We have so many free resources on there, including our 7 Questions on Leadership series. We've had more than 1,500 leaders from all over the world in all different roles, in different industries, answer these 7 questions on leadership, and leaders give these in-depth answers around how they spend their time, a book that's been significant for them. It's just a gold mine. It's completely free to access, so go to consultclarity.org and look for that. We'd also love to interview you about your leadership. I believe your experience, your life, your context means that you have advice on leadership that other leaders can learn from. Yes, you, if you're going, not me, well, no, I really believe you would have something to add. So if you're looking for a way to give back, it's completely free to get involved. And we would love to interview you through the 7 Questions on Leadership. You just go to consultclarity.org/7-questions-interest, or Google consultclarity.org 7 questions interest and fill out the form and get involved. We have a free resource on our website called the Leadership Survival Guide. It's a 57-page ebook, 10 world-class leaders giving their thoughts on leadership, and that's completely free. It's available on our homepage, consultclarity.org, right at the top, so make sure you go and get that and download it today. And we have a free daily email that you can subscribe to. We send this out to over 15,000 leaders from around the world. And it contains the highlights of content from our podcasts, our blogs, our books we're reading. It's got the best content, And it gives you exclusive, limited, early access to our masterclasses, workshops, new products, special offers. It's all for our subscribers. You can go to consultclarity.org/subscribe and join 15,000 other leaders. And my gift to you is to work really hard, particularly through the Leadership Conversations podcast. I have been blown away by the quality of the leaders, and I'm learning as much as anyone in doing these interviews. So I'm having a great time. And my gift to you is to keep lining up the best leaders I can to invest in your leadership. Your gift to me, if you're finding this helpful, there is something that you could do that would help us out massively. And that is to write a review and to leave a rating for our podcast or wherever you're watching or listening to this. I can't tell you how much that helps us out. Also, subscribe or follow. It really does make a difference in helping us to help more leaders become everything they're meant to be. Another thing that means a lot to me personally is when I see our community share our content. So if you do share this or any other piece of content on social media, then thank you, and please do that. And look for me, John O'White, or Clarity, and tag us in your post. Our team is always looking for posts to engage with from our community, and there's also a chance that we'll share your content to go beyond and share it with our followers. Last of all, you can check out my book. It's called Step Up or Step Out: How to Deal with Difficult People Even If You Hate Conflict. I wrote this book because 50% of the coaching sessions I have with leaders, this topic comes up again and again and again. And it's this idea of, how do I have this difficult conversation? How do I lead this person better when I'm finding them difficult? Or in some cases, you look and you say, I think I might be leading a difficult person. They're just quite difficult to lead, or I'm finding them quite difficult to lead. So there's a 3-step process that I unpack in Step Up or Step Out. And the amazing thing, and I've literally done this myself, and I've heard it anecdotally from other leaders as I've coached them, is that if you follow this process, you will see that person step up and change their behavior or make a decision, which is to step out some of the time. 95% of the time, people will step up or step out in just 4 weeks. And I stand by that. It's you have to read the book to understand, but I really do believe in it, and I've experienced it firsthand. It works. So you can go to Amazon, look up Step Up or Step Out John O'White, or store.consultclarity.org/book. Well, thank you so much for listening. We're going to be back with a new episode next time of the Leadership Conversations podcast. And I hope today has helped you to take another step towards becoming the leader you're meant to be. See you next time.